Not every summer trip ends with postcards and souvenirs. Some leave scars that never heal. Tonight, we dive into the terrifying side of a summer vacation.
The rental house came with a warning label, literally. A small, faded index card taped inside the welcome binder. Swimming not recommended after sunset. Management not responsible for night incidents. I should have left right then. Instead, I laughed. My teenage daughter Alexis rolled her eyes. "Mom, it's probably just liability stuff about no lifeguard." She was already pulling on her swimsuit, eager to escape into the lake after our 8-hour drive from Chicago. The pristine waters of Cedar Point stretched endlessly before our rented lakefront cabin, mirror-smooth and inviting under the August sun. For a woman going through her messiest divorce yet, paying for this week with money I couldn't afford, it looked like salvation. This trip wasn't just a vacation. It was my last desperate attempt to salvage something with Alexis before she left for college. 3 months of bitter custody battles had turned our home into a war zone. Richard had made sure of that, weaponizing every moment of normal teenage rebellion, every missed curfew, every slammed door. "You never listened to me anyway," had become Alexis's constant refrain. And maybe she was right. Between the divorce proceedings, the job I was about to lose, and the crushing weight of trying to hold everything together, I'd been running on autopilot for months. But here, watching her dive into the crystalline water with something approaching joy for the first time in weeks, I felt a flutter of hope. Maybe we could find each other again. Day 1 was perfect. We swam, we laughed. Alexis even put her phone down for hours at a time. The lake was ours alone, not another soul in sight along the tree-lined shore. Day 2 brought the first sign something was wrong. Alexis surfaced from a deep dive, gasping and pale. "Mom, there's something down there." What kind of something? I was floating on my back, eyes closed, savoring the warmth. I don't know, like singing? But underwater. I opened my eyes. Alexis was treading water 20 feet from shore, her face serious in that way that meant she wasn't joking. "Honey, sound carries weird over water. It was probably a radio from somewhere." "No." Her voice was sharp. "It was coming from below. Directly below me." We swam back to shore, and I told myself it was nothing. Imagination. Maybe some kind of fish behavior or water currents creating odd acoustics. But that night, as we barbecued on the deck, I heard it too. A low, melodic humming that seemed to rise from the depths whenever the sun touched the horizon. Not quite human, not quite animal. Alexis and I looked at each other across the picnic table, hamburgers forgotten. "You hear it now?" she whispered. I nodded, my throat suddenly dry. The sound was beautiful and wrong at the same time, like a lullaby sung by something that had learned human music, but didn't quite understand what made it human. Night 3. I did what any reasonable person would do. I Googled Cedar Point Lake strange sounds. What I found made my blood freeze. 1987. Family of 4 disappeared during night swim. Witnesses reported unusual vocalizations from the lake. 1995. Solo camper found drowned in shallow water. Cause of death unexplained. Journal mentioned the song calling from below. 2003. Rescue divers searching for missing teenager report equipment malfunctions at depths beyond 40 feet. Dive called off after 3 team members experienced auditory hallucinations. 2019. Lake temporarily closed after multiple reports of aggressive aquatic behavior targeting nighttime swimmers. I should have packed us up that instant. Instead, I told myself it was coincidence. Urban legends. internet rabbit holes that turn every vacation spot into a horror story. But I watched Alexis more carefully, and I noticed how her eyes kept drifting to the water as evening approached, a dreamy expression I'd never seen before. Day 4, Alexis disappeared for 3 hours. I found her at the shoreline at dusk, standing waist-deep in the lake, perfectly still. The humming was stronger than ever, almost hypnotic in its rhythm. "Alexis," I called. She didn't respond, didn't even turn. I splashed into the water after her, and the moment I reached knee depth, I felt it. A pull, gentle but insistent, like invisible hands tugging at my ankles. The humming became words I almost recognized, in a language that felt familiar, even though I'd never heard it before. Come deeper. Come home. Come down where the water is always warm, and the pressure holds you safe, and sound sleeps eternal. Alexis. I grabbed her arm. She turned to me with eyes that reflected the dying sunlight like a cat's, pupils dilated despite the brightness. "Mom, do you hear how beautiful it is? They're calling us. They want us to join them." That night, I barricaded us in the cabin. Alexis actually fought me, clawing at the windows, begging to go back to the water. I had to hold her until she finally collapsed in exhausted sobs. "I can still hear them," she whispered against my shoulder. "Even in here. They're lonely, Mom. They've been alone so long." Day 5 brought no peace. The humming had become constant, seeping through the walls, through the floors. I could taste it in the air, salt and copper and something organic that made my stomach turn. Alexis had stopped eating, stopped talking. She just stared at the lake through the windows with that same dreamy expression, occasionally humming along with the sound that seemed to be driving us both slowly insane. I tried calling the rental company. No service. I tried driving us out. The car wouldn't start. I tried walking to the nearest neighbor. The property stretched for miles, and every path led back to the lake. That's when I understood. This wasn't just about the water. It was about us. Something down there had chosen us specifically, and it wasn't going to let us leave. By sunset, Alexis was sleepwalking. I found her standing at the front door, hands pressed against the glass, humming that impossible melody. "They showed me," she whispered, without turning around. "What it's like down there. It's peaceful, Mom. No arguing, no lawyers, no choosing sides. Just quiet." My heart broke, because I could hear the appeal in her voice. After months of chaos, the promise of eternal quiet sounded like paradise. And that's when I realized the entities, whatever they weren't just hunting randomly. They were targeting people who were already drowning in different ways. People who might actually welcome the alternative they offered. I made my choice at 3 a.m. when I woke to find Alexis gone. She was in the lake, 30 feet from shore, floating face up with her eyes closed, and that serene smile I hadn't seen since she was small. The water around her glowed with a soft, phosphorescent light, and shapes moved beneath the surface. Large, graceful forms that might have been human once. "Alexis, come back." She opened her eyes. "It's okay, Mom. Come in. The water's perfect." I didn't hesitate. I dove in, swimming hard toward her, fighting against the current that tried to drag me deeper. The humming was deafening now, coming from all directions, and I could see them clearly. Pale figures with flowing hair and eyes like dark stars, reaching up from the depths with expressions of infinite sadness. "Why do you fight us?" The voice was in my head now, soft and reasonable. "Your daughter understands. She knows we offer only peace." "Because peace isn't the same as giving up," I gasped, reaching Alexis just as she started to sink. I grabbed her, expecting her to fight me, but instead she clung to me with desperate strength. "Mom, I can't stop listening to them," she sobbed, They're so sad, and they make it sound so easy. But I don't actually want to go. I want to fight with you. I want to pick colleges and have stupid arguments about curfew and... Then we fight, I said, swimming hard for shore as the shapes below us rose higher, their song turning from invitation to command. We fight together. I don't remember how we made it to shore. One moment we were surrounded by those pale figures, their song overwhelming every thought, and the next we were collapsed on the beach, coughing up lake water that tasted of decades and decay. The car started on the first try. We drove through the night in silence, neither of us daring to speak until we crossed the county line, and the humming finally faded from our minds. Alexis looked at me as the sun rose over the highway. Mom? Yeah? When we get home, can we maybe try family therapy? Instead of just letting the lawyers handle everything? I reached over and squeezed her hand. Yeah, we can try. We never spoke about what happened at Cedar Point, but something fundamental shifted between us that night in the water. We'd faced something that offered us an easy escape from our problems, and we'd chosen the hard path instead. Together, 6 months later, Richard and I finalized our divorce amicably. Alexis started college but came home every weekend, claiming it was for my cooking, but really just to talk. We still fight sometimes, but it's different now. The kind of fighting that comes from caring too much, not too little. I kept the welcome binder from the rental cabin. That index card is still there. Swimming not recommended after sunset. Management not responsible for night incidents. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the figures in the lake. How sad they looked. How lonely. How they're probably still singing their beautiful, terrible song, waiting for the next family desperate enough to listen. And I wonder, how many of them were once people like us, who thought peace was worth any price, until they realized that some prices are too high to pay, even for paradise. But mostly, I'm grateful. Because Alexis and I learned something that night in the dark water. Sometimes the hardest fight is the one worth having. And sometimes, the people who make you angriest are the same ones worth drowning for. We chose to surface. We chose each other. And in the end, that choice saved us both.